Hare Krishna. So we'll start with Jai Radha Madhav. Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braj Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braj Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Manachari. Jamuna Tira Manachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashoda Nandana Braj Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braj Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Manachari. Jamuna Tira Manachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahams Parivraj Jagacharya Stotra Satis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. BBT founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Pramsika Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinasha Makunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jai Nitai Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitai Gauda Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Shmari Radha Swami Namane Vishnu Padaya Krishna Shmari Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste. Hare Krishna, everyone. So thank you very much for inviting me to be able to give class here in the holy dham of Shri Shri Radha Govinda Mandir, in the presence of Lord Jagannath, Baladev Subhadra Devi, and also Shri Shri Jai Nitai, Srila Prabhupada, and all the assembled Vaishnavas. So it is a great honor and privilege to be here with all of you. And congratulations for making it to Bhagavatam class. There are something like 8 million people, I think, in New York, and there's only about 10 in this room. So there's something to be said about the rarity of devotional service. So it's not everyone is able to perform devotional service. So I would like to congratulate all of you and thank you for being here. So we'll be reading a few verses today, continuing from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Adi Leela. And we're reading chapter 4, which is the confidential reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we'll be starting at text 57 and going up to text number 60, which we'll repeat and which has the purport. So before we begin, we can recite the invocation. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. C.C. Adi Leela, chapter 4, text 57. Seduye kebe Chaitanya Gosani Rasa Swadite Donhe Huele Ekatani. Translation. Now, to enjoy rasa, they have appeared in one body as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes. Iti lage age karitara vivaran Yahaoite haya gorera mahima katan. Translation. Therefore, I shall first delineate the position of Radha and Krishna. From that description, the glory of Lord Chaitanya will be known. Text 59. Radhika hayena krishnera pranaya vikar swarup shakti ladini namayanha. Translation. Srimati Radhika is the transformation of Krishna's love. She is his internal energy called Ladini. And today's verse, text 60, we can please repeat. Ladini karaya Krishne anandaswadan. Ladinira dwara kare bhaktera poshan. Ladini karaya Krishne anandaswadan. Ladinira dwara kare bhaktera poshan. Ladini karaya Krishne anandaswadan. Ladinira dwara kare bhaktera poshan. Someone else? Ladini karaya Krishne anandaswadan. Ladies? Ladini karaya Krishna anandaswadan. Word for word. Ladini, the Ladini energy. Karaya, causes to do. Krishna, and Lord Krishna. Ananda aswadan, the tasting of bliss. Ladinira dwara, by the pleasure potency. Kare, does. Bhaktera, of the devotee. Poshana, nourishing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Ladini energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami has elaborately discussed the Ladini potency in his Priti Sandarbha. He says that the Vedas clearly state, quote, only devotional service can lead one to the personality of Godhead. Only devotional service can help a devotee meet the Supreme Lord face to face. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is attracted by devotional service, and as such, the ultimate supremacy of Vedic knowledge rests in knowing the science of devotional service, end quote. What is the particular attraction that makes the Supreme Lord enthusiastic to accept devotional service? And what is the nature of such service? The Vedic scriptures inform us that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, is self-sufficient, and that Maya, nescience, can never influence him at all. Therefore, the potency that overcomes the Supreme must be purely spiritual. Such a potency cannot be anything of the material manifestation. The bliss enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be of material composition, like the impersonalist conception of the bliss of Brahman. Devotional service is reciprocation between two, and therefore it cannot be located simply within oneself. Therefore, the bliss of self-realization, Brahmananda, cannot be equated with devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has three kinds of internal potency, namely the Ladini Shakti, or pleasure potency, the Sandini Shakti, or existential potency, and the Samvit Shakti, or cognitive potency. In the Vishnu Purana 1.12.69, the Lord is addressed as followed: O Lord, you are the support of everything. The three attributes, Ladini, Sandini, and Samvit, exist in you as one spiritual energy. But the material modes which cause happiness, misery, and mixtures of the two do not exist in you, for you have no material qualities. Ladini is the personal manifestation of the blissfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by which he enjoys pleasure. Because the pleasure potency is perpetually present in the Supreme Lord, the theory of the impersonalist that the Lord appears in the material mode of goodness cannot be accepted. The impersonalist conclusion is against the Vedic version that the Lord possesses a transcendental pleasure potency. When the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is exhibited by His grace in the person of a devotee, that manifestation is called love of God. Love of God is an epithet for the pleasure potency of the Lord. Therefore, devotional service reciprocated between the Lord and His devotee is an exhibition of the transcendental pleasure potency of the Lord. The potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that always enriches Him with transcendental bliss is not material, but the Shankarites have accepted it as such because they are ignorant of the identity of the Supreme Lord and His pleasure potency. Those ignorant persons cannot understand the distinction between impersonal spiritual bliss and variegatedness of the spiritual pleasure potency. The Ladini potency gives the Lord all transcendental pleasure, and the Lord bestows such a potency upon His pure devotee. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuromilitam Jnana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jnana Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the verse that we read last, verse 60 again. Ladini Karaya Krishne Ananda Swadan Ladinira Dwara Kare Bhaktera Pushan. The Ladini energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. Shamsindhu Prabhu, I would like to share my screen. Is that possible? I set it up last time. Screen mirroring, 32-inch smart monitor. There's a different one. 85, yeah, that looked a little bigger than 32 inches. Sorry, I meant to tell you before. I'm on the one that I think they sent me at Orbi 26. I have an adapter, but is it not easier to just do it like this? A little difficult. Say again? Oh, HDMI. I have the adapter. Okay. Last time it was so simple, this time I thought it would be simple also. Oh, I'm connected to Gigabit now. Yeah. Yeah, Crystal UHD. It does. Looks like it's taking some sweet time. My apologies, everyone. I should have done this beforehand. But last time it was so easy, I thought it would be automatic. Okay. Okay. Oh, what happened? Okay. Why did it do that? Okay. Yeah, let me just do this here. Okay. All right. Here we go. Lovely. All right. So, Yeah, very elevated topic matter for this fourth chapter of the Adi Leela, which is, Srila Prabhupada explains that the Chaitanya Charitamrita is the PhD study of spiritual life. So right at the very beginning, fourth chapter, you're immediately right into the confidential reasons for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya in this world. And we see in this purport it's discussing Krishna's Swarup Shakti. Before I begin, I would like to seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas that you see fit to bestow your mercy on me so that I can speak something relevant and bona fide from the pages of this most exalted scripture, the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Only by the mercy of Vaishnavas is anything possible. So I wanted to start with a little story. Some years ago, I don't know, maybe 5-7 years ago now, we were visiting my family in Maryland, which is in the middle of nowhere. My wife and I went out for a walk just down almost like a country lane. And one of the neighbors near my parents, elderly gentleman, he must have been in his late 70s then, he was sitting on his porch on a swing, on one of those big swings, playing his guitar. And he saw us walk by and he said, "Hey, who are you guys?" And he called us over. And we started chatting with them, and I think we were actually dressed in devotional clothes, so it was a little bit unusual for him. And he said, "What are you guys doing? Who are you? What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're Hare Krishnas, and we're just visiting my family." And he said, "Oh, I remember the Hare Krishnas from back in the day in New York." He said, "I used to go to these trade shows, and I'd always get some books, and I read the books." And then we just started chatting, wound up connecting with him. And next thing I know, I speak to him about 6 months, 8 months later when I come to visit again, and he's already up to the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's been ordering them online, like volume by volume, on eBay, used, whatever. He's got this wild collection of Bhagavatams. And he's already up to the 4th canto, which he calls the Srimad, how does he say it? Bhagavatam. He says the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he's a very elderly Western-bodied gentleman. So I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So then we start talking. We start doing some readings together and chatting. Anyway, a few years later, a year and a half later, maybe even a year later, he basically has finished the Bhagavatam. He starts reading all these other books. He reads the Bhagavatam again for the 2nd time, and I start sending him loads of other books. We got him a full set of Bhagavatams. That was my Bhadra Purnim offering to him one year. So like that, just amazing personality, and he really loves the sections on Gyan. I said, "What did you think of the 10th canto?" He said, "It was nice stories, but I really like the 11th canto. I like that Jnana stuff, So anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is because earlier this year I sent him the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, because I said, "Look, you read through the Bhagavatam twice." And he's like, "I keep reading about this Lord Caitanya's person. Who is this guy?" So I gave him the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and he said, "Wow, this is a really tough book." He's like, I said, "Yeah, it takes that whole jnana stuff to the next level, doesn't it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can't really, whew." So he eventually made it through, but it took him a long time to get through just the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, because I was saying to him, "I'm going to get you Chaitanya Charitamrita set so you can read that." And then he's just now started reading it again, because he said, "I don't think I did it justice the first time." And I just spoke to him on Thursday. And he said, "I'm going through it for the 2nd time. And yeah, the teachings of that Rupa Goswami, they're the 2 brothers, right? Yeah, that's really," and he's just like extolling the glories of Chaitanya Charitamrita through the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So I just wanted to share that for many reasons. One, because obviously Chaitanya Charitamrita is very elevated understanding of the philosophy of devotional service, and not everyone gets it. In fact, out of the many, many religions in the world, although all of them are united by so many different aspects of understanding of God, but Gaudiya Vaishnav Siddhanta takes us to a whole different realm that is the most confidential of confidential topics. And it's, as Prabhupada would say, you can't just buy a plane ticket to Vrindavan. You may get on a plane, you may have the ticket, you may even get on the plane, and you may even walk around Vrindavan. But it is not the physical proximity that makes you in Vrindavan. It is the consciousness. And so therefore, if our consciousness is not sufficiently purified to enter into this deeper understanding, you just won't get access. You may think you do, but actually you will not have access. Because if Srimati Radharani doesn't allow you into the Holy Dham, you're not going into the Holy Dham. Even physically you may be there, but you will not enter the inner sanctum of the Dham. So in the same way, understanding these confidential topics of Lord Chaitanya, even though Srila Prabhupada so expertly put these confidential matters out into the entire universe, but people may read it, we may read it again and again and again, but to really enter into it is a whole nother situation. And so as I was reading through this verse and purport, I realized after however many years of being around chanting Hare Krishna, reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, I've also read through it twice, and listened to many classes, that I'm like, I have understood absolutely nothing. I really have not gone deep. I mean, I can say, of course, I understand Radha and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya's a man, and I can say all of this stuff, but somehow reading this, I was like, Srila Prabhupada, you are amazing. What you have given to the world is unfathomable for most people. We hardly even can grasp what is going on here, So I just thought I would try to put a little something together to explain a minute amount of what I understood from this verse and purport, which for me can be very technical. And for a lot of people, that's off-putting. They just want to hear the leelas and the pastimes and all the technical stuff. But then for other people, like my friend, he's into the jnana, the jnana. He wants to hear the knowledge, the philosophy, the wisdom. He wants it to, make sense. That's why the 11th canto for him, somehow he really got into that. So, one of the first statements here in the purport is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has three kinds of internal potency, namely the Ladini Shakti, or pleasure potency, the Sandini Shakti, or the existential potency, and the Samvit Shakti, or cognitive potency. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well on the screen, but put this together quite quickly. So, in general, the Lord has three potencies which we always discuss, which is His internal energy, His external energy, and His marginal energy, which is what we are, the jivas. We are the marginal energy. And why are we considered marginal or tatashta? Because we can go either way. We can be influenced by the external energy, or we can be influenced by the internal energy. And what determines that influence? What? Three modes, yes and no. Exactly. What determines whether the jiva, the tatashta shakti, comes under the influence of the internal or under the influence of the external? What did you say? Desire, yes, and you said? Exactly. Our conscious desire. Just like it's described, I think I mentioned this last time, that when chanting Hare Krishna, there are three ways to chant Hare Krishna. You can chant Hare Krishna offensively, you can chant Hare Krishna on the Namabas, the clearing stage, or you can chant Shuddhanam on the pure stage. The Acharyas explain that simply to come to the middle platform of chanting, all we have to do is consciously express to Krishna before we start chanting that our intention and desire is to chant free from offense. That's it. And then we are automatically on the Namabas platform. Well, that seems so simple. But how many of us, before we start chanting, take even a moment to consciously pray to Krishna, please help me to chant inoffensively. If we're honest, often we just grab our beads and we're like, right? And we just are focusing on what? Finishing. When will I get these rounds done? If we're honest, most of us are thinking like that. And that's why Prabhupada said, many of my disciples, they're chanting like this, and he pulled the last bead and he said, now I can do whatever the hell I like, you know? So now that I got that out of the way, let me get on with it. So the point is, what is our consciousness? At every moment, Krishna consciousness. There's this beautiful painting in 26 Avenue, a picture of the Krishna deity, and then there's a picture of Prabhupada. And when Jadurani painted the picture, she said, this is Krishna consciousness, because Prabhupada is in Krishna consciousness, because he's always thinking of Krishna, he's always seeing Krishna. At every moment we have to consciously be placing ourselves under the internal energy. That is Krishna consciousness. In one sense, the externals are not so significant, because we're going to have to deal with the external energy anyway. But the external energy is also Krishna's energy. Just like offering an apple to Krishna. What is the difference between an apple and prasadam apple? Consciousness. It's the process by which we connect Om Purnamadi Purnamidam, the complete with the incomplete, and make the incomplete complete. That is the consciousness by which we become aware of Krishna. We come under the internal energy. And we perform activities in our day-to-day life known as sadhana or worship that helps to connect us, helps us to be in the consciousness that we're remembering Krishna. But you can be chanting your rounds and be in Maya. Yes or no? Absolutely. He's never in Maya, of course, but he knows that it's a fact for us youngsters. So, yes, so you can be chanting your rounds, standing on the altar, offering arti, and you can still be in Maya, because your consciousness is not with Krishna. It's not in the internal energy. So like this. And so this external energy is where the three modes of material nature reside. And then we have down below the internal potencies, which is being discussed today. Generally, we talk about Sat, Chit, and Ananda. These are the potencies that make up the Supreme Lord, and anything spiritual is comprised of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. We are spirit soul, and the spirit soul is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. It is Sat, which means, we say, eternal. Chit, which means fully cognizant, full of knowledge. And Ananda, it is fully blissful. Anandamayo Bhyasat. The nature of the spirit soul, we say, is Anandamayo Bhyasat, which means it is pleasure seeking. So in this way we have Sat, Chit, and Ananda, and these relate directly to the words that we heard today, which are Sandini, Samvit, and Ladini. So the Sandini potency affects us as the living entities. By this creates spiritual places, time, objects are all manifest from this Sandini potency. The Samvit is knowledge of relationships along with all types of emotions peculiar to the different abodes of the Lord. And by the Ladini portion, all the experiences of bliss suitable to each abode is manifested. So in this way, we see that this is the relationship of these terms. And then specifically here, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami goes into the Ladini Shakti. He begins to discuss about the Ladini Shakti. So this is from Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the fifth rainfall. It says, from the Sandini Shakti arises the spiritual body. From the Samvit Shakti arises knowledge and will. And from the Ladini Shakti comes bliss. When these three energies combine in the soul manifests completely. The soul's body is a particle of the spirit of the Sandhini Shakti. The soul's will is a particle of the Samvit Shakti, and the soul's bliss is a very small portion of the Hladini Shakti. This is the true identity of the soul or his dharma. And if the consciousness of the soul manifests ecstasy through the Hladini Shakti, the soul has attained the state of rati, or bhava, or the seedling of prema, which is the manifestation of complete and ecstatic love for the Lord. This is the highest level of spiritual maturity for which the soul is meant to attain, and which also leads to the foremost levels of happiness and bliss. So this gives a deeper kind of revelation or understanding of how these three energies, which are all the internal energy of the Lord, manifest us as spiritual beings, and how, beginning to look at how this Hladini Shakti, or the experience of us, because devotional service is meant to be susukam kartamavyayam. It's meant to be joyfully performed. In fact, yeah, it should be. It doesn't mean that we're always walking around laughing, like blissed out. But it could mean that for certain devotees. But it means that there should be bliss. Once Prabhupada was very grave, and they were like, Prabhupada, is everything okay? And he was expressing that he was internally experiencing ecstasy, but externally you couldn't really see that. So in the Sri Bhakti Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, it says, bhakti, or loving devotion, is the supreme aspect of this internal potency known as Hladini. The Lord remains eternally situated in his fullness while transmitting this potency of bhakti to his own devotees. Then, by contact with his own bliss-giving potency in the form of bhakti situated in his devotees, he experiences still greater or ever-increasing delight. Thus, although the Lord is the personification of love, he is pleased by loving devotion. So, just to try to explain this a little bit. So the Lord is Om Purnamadi Purnamidam. He is perfect and complete. He is satisfied in himself. But he puts this bhakti potency, this Hladini Shakti, into the world, and those who take it up, meaning us, we're taking up this process of bhakti, and by the performance of bhakti, the Lord experiences, when we do some bhakti, offering, chanting, praying, cleaning the floor, washing the pots, honoring prasad. When we perform bhakti, the Lord actually, it says, he experiences ever-increasing delight. The Lord becomes pleased. So although the Lord is the personification of love, he is pleased by that love. So it always reminds me of like when you go to a sacred river or a kund, the first thing you're meant to do is take a little bit of that kund or that river and you offer it back. Again, this is placing ourselves under the internal energy, being conscious of what we're doing. Instead of just showing up and splashing in and swimming around like we're in a swimming pool at the local, gym or whatever, we approach that body of water understanding that you are a personification of a holy person, a holy tirtha, and I'm going to offer. What can I offer to you? I have nothing to offer except your own holy water I offer back to you. In the same way, we take the energy that the Lord has given us, and what do we do with it? We offer it back to the Lord. This is the consciousness of engaging in bhakti. And it continues in this way, even though the Lord is fully satisfied in himself by his own potency, he nonetheless becomes more pleased by the bhakti or devotion shown to him by his devotees. So the Lord is perfectly complete. It's like the question someone asked Prabhupada, can Krishna make a hill that he can't lift? And what did Prabhupada say? Yes. And then Prabhupada said, and then he'll lift it. So it's inconceivable, achintya. So the Lord, this is how the Lord is pleased. So, further explained, it is through bhakti that the Lord's inherent bliss becomes magnified, even by what may seem to be insignificant actions. If they are filled with love, the Lord becomes even more pleased and blissful. This is how the process of bhakti not only connects the devotee to his Ladini Shakti, but also increases the Lord's own loving relation to the devotees. This is the foundation of the ever-increasing reciprocal joy and bliss between the Lord and his loving devotees. But let us not forget, the devotee also experiences Ananda. The devotee also experiences bliss. It's a reciprocal thing. The Lord is pleased, the devotee becomes pleased. The devotee wants to do more, offers more to the Lord becomes more pleased, he gives more, and then the devotee just becomes more and more blissful. And the pinnacle of this blissful experience is manifested in Srimati Radharani. So much so that Krishna himself sees, we know this pastime, he sees his own reflection and he's thinking, wow. Of course, we also look at our own reflection and think, wow. But it's different when Krishna looks at his reflection and thinks, wow. Because he's the all-attractive. We're just the minute portion of his attractiveness. So when Krishna, he thinks, my God. And then he wonders, what is it that Srimati Radharani is experiencing? What is it that my dearmost devotee, what must she be feeling to offer her loving devotion to me? And because of this, Krishna realizes this is something I actually don't understand. I have not experienced this. I'm on the receiving end, but I'm not on that receiving end. I'm not on the offering side. And therefore he desires to become and becomes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, though the Lord's energies are one and make up the composition of his Swarup Shakti, he is complete eternal form. The Ladini Shakti separates for the enhanced and intensification of the Lord's bliss-producing pastimes. So the Lord is first just one. But to increase his own pleasure, he expands himself, and Srimati Radharani, who is the embodiment of the Ladini Shakti, manifests as a separated portion of him. And that's why in the purport it mentions that you cannot experience the bliss of devotional service as one. So this whole impersonalistic idea of Brahmananda and experiencing bliss in Brahmananda and Brahman realization is impossible because it takes two. Even Krishna had to expand himself into two. There has to be an exchange of love. There has to be that exchange. But then for Krishna to experience what Srimati Radharani was experiencing, what the Ladini Shakti herself was experiencing, he then became one again and took the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. He is Krishna imbued with the manifestation of the devotional service or practice, the bhakti of that Ladini Shakti, Srimati Radharani. So although Lord Shri Krishna is complete in his form composed of the Samvit, Sandhini, and Ladini energies and needs nothing else, the Ladini energy separates and becomes personified as Srimati Radharani. In this way, Radharani is always hankering to unite with Krishna, and Krishna is always hankering to unite with Srimati Radharani, because originally they are one. And so they're always longing for that oneness. This is because together as Radha and Krishna, they make up the complete absolute truth. In this way, they exhibit the highest levels of spiritual loving exchanges and pastimes. Not only do the two of them engage in such loving relations, but this arrangement allows the many millions of other devotees who have similar sentiments to also become a part of these loving affairs and engage in the loving service of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestation. You would have read this maybe last week. Of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. So Lord Chaitanya, the hidden avatar of Kali Yuga, the personality who introduced the Yuga Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna, that personality who comes once in a day of Lord Brahma, which is very, very rare, extremely rare, he manifested just 530 some years ago and gave this opportunity to everyone to engage in bhakti, to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. And he revealed himself to different personalities who were able to see and understand who he was. And Lord Chaitanya, in this way, we are so blessed and fortunate to have access. The unfortunate thing is we don't always express or understand, express gratitude or express cognizant understanding of just how amazingly fortunate we are. And we're just finishing, there's a group of us who just read the first part of the Srimad, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And at the very end, we're just finishing the book and about to start the second book. That in the purports there, Sanatana Goswami explains that the highest practice for generating this love for Krishna is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But let us not chant while we're in Maya. Let us pray before we chant to Harinam Prabhu, to Krishna, to Radha and Krishna, to Lord Chaitanya, to please help me to chant your holy name with a sincere heart. Please help me to chant free from offense. Please, please, please help me to take shelter of you when I'm chanting these holy names. Srimati Radharani is the transformation of Krishna's love. She is his internal energy called Ladini, and that Ladini energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. So as we are on the eve, just a week away from tomorrow, 1 week from tomorrow, we are just so close to celebrating the divine appearance day of Srimati Radharani. So this is such an auspicious occasion. We had Balaram, Krishna, Prabhupada, and then we get to Srimati Radharani, which, by the way, also explained in the end of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the first part, that actually Shukadev Goswami is such an elevated soul that he could reveal all of these nectarian pastimes, but if he even speaks the name of one of the gopis, it doesn't just mention that Radharani, but he doesn't mention any of the gopis by name. Because if he mentions any of those gopis by name, he will go into such an ecstatic trance that Parikshit Maharaj may leave his body and they might not finish the whole recitation of the Bhagavatam. So he consciously doesn't speak those names. He consciously doesn't intentionally mention Srimati Radharani in the Bhagavatam. But perpetually she is referred to, inferred. And of course, later the Goswamis come and the Acharyas, they open up so that we can have access. But Srimati Radharani is not, she is the most confidential of confidential knowledge and wisdom. And so therefore we also should be very careful that we don't take who she is and what she is cheaply. Srila Prabhupada was very careful and very cautious to give us access to Srimati Radharani through Krishna, through Lord Chaitanya, so that we don't take her cheaply, that we don't take the idea of the Ladini Shakti, the idea of devotional service cheaply. Sometimes it can be distributed like that. Like even when in Vrindavan everyone says, Radhe Radhe, what does Srila Prabhupada say? Hare Krishna. So in that way, but don't think for a moment that it's not because Srila Prabhupada wasn't experiencing levels of ecstasy and understanding of who Srimati Radharani is. So like that. So as we come close to Radhastami, we can meditate on these verses. Perfect section of Chaitanya Charitamrita for everyone to prepare their consciousness. Okay, so I will conclude here. And if anyone has any closing remarks or comments. Yes, Pancharatna Gosai.
A couple of things, but first I wanted to read something that, because you mentioned about how we approach our chanting.
Yes.
And there's a beautiful
Turn that off.
Conversation that took place early in 1969, I think it was. Prabhupada was recovering at Stowe Lake.
Upstate.
You've heard this?
No, but maybe. But
so it's a long, but I'll get to. I'll just read this. Therefore, this one practice, chanting Hare Krishna and hearing, that is very nice. And praying to Krishna, please give me strength. Hare, O energy of Krishna, O Krishna, I am fallen. I have no strength. Please accept me. That's all. I have no qualification. I am frail. I am trying, but I am failing. All these appeals should be made. And Krishna is all-powerful. He can do anything. Even that we do not perform, trying our best. If we fail, Krishna will help us. Just like a child tries his best, but he falls down. The mother takes up and, all right, come on, walk. Like that. Yes. So this is something to remember. Here in, I find it very wonderful that we're here. We have Jagannath, Subhadra, and Baladev, and Balabhadra is there. He is Balabhadra. So, but I wanted to just ask a question too, because you just mentioned about cheapness in respect of Sri Radha, and I'd like to, maybe you could give us a bit more example, because it's we go to Vrindavan often, and Radhe Radhe, it seems to come naturally, and even often in our kirtans, at least in some places, maybe not so much here in Brooklyn, but in some kirtans, then they can get into a lot of Radhe Radhe. And I know in one case, Srila Prabhupada was particularly asked about this, and he says, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, how can there anything be wrong with repeating the name of Sri Radha? But there's this, what is it that we have to be careful of? Maybe you can just expand a bit on that.
Yeah, but you could probably expand better than me, but you're asking. So, like Lord Chaitanya speaking to Ramananda Roy, I will try to internally pray for Krishna to help me. But the first thing that came to mind was the devotees, the way they were bathing in Radha Kund, when Srila Prabhupada kind of gave the order that you're not qualified to do that anymore, and basically told devotees that they shouldn't bathe in Radha Kund. At least that's my understanding. And some devotees shared that that kind of went through the ISKCON world by word of mouth, that now we're not allowed to do that kind of thing. Yet, in Nectar of Instruction, it more or less orders us to bathe in Radha Kund. But because of the mentality of the devotees who were going to Radha Kund to bathe, they were being frivolous and carefree. Now, I've been to Radha Kund so many times, and the locals, they just play in Radha Kund. I've seen them. But that's not our approach to Srimati Radharani. And the thing is, it's sort of like being in a relationship, and familiarity breeds contempt. And if we become over-familiar, we become contemptuous in the sense that we take it for granted, and we don't really have the proper mood of respect. And of course, we know ultimately we want to go beyond awe and reverence, but our approach should be one of deep respect and deep reverence towards Srimati Radharani and anything connected with her, to speak of her name. And darshan of her feet, I know in Vrindavan it's kind of allowed, but in other places they don't. We used to do it for many years, but then we were asked to also stop. And because it can be, and I've seen myself also, it becomes frivolous in certain ways. It's just like our consciousness, as we were mentioning earlier, being in the Tatashta Shakti, our consciousness, even for spiritual things, can become mundane very quickly. So by approaching with caution, it causes us to slow down. We're often very passionate about things. Radhe, 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 Radhe. It's like, it can be, this is Srimati Radharani, the most beloved, dearest devotee of Krishna, and there's nothing wrong with chanting her name in ecstasy. At the same time, it seems that maybe we should be a little respectful and cautious in approaching her, the beloved of the Lord. Anyway, that's kind of a few thoughts that came to mind. I don't know if you would like to embellish or add anything. I'm sure you have.
You hit upon the main concern is becoming casual in relationship to Shri Radha. And like the rickshaw wallahs of Vrindavan, Radhe, Radhe. It's just like, hey, Radhe, it's like you get out of the way. We should be careful, but also like you said, the one thing that Srila Prabhupada always insisted and is that Hare Krishna, that when our approach to Shri Radha is with the prayer to be engaged in the service of Krishna. So it's always connected. So whereas there's, in some circles, the Shri Radha becomes everything.
Primary.
And it becomes distorted, because Sri Radha's mood is simply to serve Krishna, and if you try to separate the two, and that I think is Prabhupada's. I'd have to go back and look more into that, but I think that was like indicated by Srila Prabhupada's response. We're always vice versa too. Krishna is there with Sri Radha or with his devotees who manifest Sri Radha. So that's, and at the same time, we need Sri Radha's mercy, so that path of, like you say, maintaining that respect and understanding and not taking it cheaply, or simply, the term sahajya actually means easy, sahaj, that taking it as something that I can easily, just by doing this, then it's all done. It's not so easy like that, and to think that think like that could be offensive. So you have to do the work. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, so I think if there's time, I'm okay, but I know we're getting a little past time.
Thank you. I'll be brief. It was a wonderful class. Thank you so much for highlighting this essential
Jai Prabhupada.
section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but there is a caveat, and the caveat comes in this verse 56. Radha and Krishna are one and the same. This is huge. And this is something that I personally did not get when I first became a devotee. The emphasis is all on Krishna, and so we ask, who is this beautiful woman besides? And people weren't giving much explanation, but this is so beautiful and needs to be read repeatedly. They have assumed two bodies, thus they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. Now, this is a fabulous way to explain the identity of God to newcomers. Who is God? What is he like? And then you say, well, it's he, she. You can't have one without the other. So, anyway, thank you so much for bringing this essential point up.
Thank you for highlighting it. Yeah, just close. You just reminded me that I used to love when new people would come to the temple and I'd bring them in front of the deities. Especially, we used to have a lot of visitors from universities or high schools and things like that would come to the temple, and I would explain exactly that this is Radha and Krishna. So in our philosophy, we understand that God is masculine, but he's also feminine. And I say, in fact, I'll let you all in on a little secret. And they'll be like, ooh. And I'm like, we don't tell everyone this, but we don't necessarily believe that God is God the masculine. We believe the supreme God is actually the feminine. And of course, all the ladies in the group go, yeah. And then I tell the story of Madan Mohan. And I say, Krishna has a name, Madan Mohan, which means he is the bewilderer of Cupid, you know? He is so beautiful that Cupid becomes bewildered by him. I said, but Radha, her name is Madan Mohan Mohini, which means the person who bewilders Cupid is bewildered by her. And so therefore, he becomes under her control. And then they all are like, and I don't know if they always get it, but at least they get something. So anyway, nice point. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.